Is our education system actually teaching us how to think, or just what to think? Are we building leaders or mass-producing obedient followers? Stick around. This might change how you see school. Forever. Education is the foundation of any society. We send our kids to school hoping they'll grow up smart, independent, and successful. But here's the question. If the system is really built to empower individuals, why does it look the same today as it did 100 years ago? Rows of desks, bells, silence, obedience, memorization. This isn't a conspiracy theory, but what if I told you that the very structure of our education system wasn't designed to build trailblazers? It was designed to build factory workers. Let's start with where this all began. The modern education system was developed during the Industrial Revolution. Factories needed punctual, obedient, and efficient workers. Not dreamers, not rebels, workers. So schools were modeled like factories. Bells marked the start and end of shifts, classes. Students sat in rows, followed instructions, and were penalized for talking back. Creativity? Optional. Critical thinking? Not until college, maybe. Sound familiar? The goal was to create a compliant workforce, not to spark revolutionary thinkers. Now, does that system still make sense in the 21st century? That's where the debate begins. Let's break this bold claim into three major truths. You might agree, you might not, but listen with an open mind. Uniformity is rewarded, creativity is punished. Imagine this. A student writes an essay with an unconventional argument. The teacher says, "That's not what we covered in class," and deducts points. Translation: think inside the box, or you fail. Standardized tests require standardized answers. But real life? It rewards bold ideas, not memorized facts. Leaders innovate, followers replicate, but the system grades you on how well you replicate. Obedience versus initiative. From kindergarten onward, students are told, raise your hand before speaking. Do your homework exactly as told. Stay in line. Yes, discipline matters. But over 12+ years, this trains people to wait for permission, not take initiative. In leadership, initiative is everything. But in school, initiative often looks like disruptive behavior. Have you ever noticed how many successful entrepreneurs were labeled troublemakers in school? Questions are discouraged, answers are worshipped. Teachers love curious students, right? In theory, yes. But ask too many questions, especially ones that challenge authority, and suddenly, you're difficult. Think about this. Leaders ask why, followers ask how high, when told to jump. An education system that teaches you to memorize and obey doesn't equip you to challenge or lead. And that's a problem. Now hold on. You might be thinking, but schools teach teamwork, leadership clubs, debate teams, isn't that leadership? Sure, a few programs encourage leadership, but those are often extracurriculars, optional. They're not baked into the core curriculum. Also ask yourself this, why do we wait until college to really teach people to think critically? Why not start in elementary school? Because the system wasn't designed for leaders. It was designed to make society function, not evolve. And that's the heart of the issue. Obedience isn't always a virtue. History has shown us the danger of masses blindly following orders. Nazi Germany, cultural revolutions, mass propaganda. Many of those followers were well-educated. But were they trained to question, to resist, to think independently? Leaders don't just follow rules, they challenge the ones that no longer make sense. We need an education system that builds that kind of mindset, not just rule followers. Let's look at the job market. Employers now say they want people who can solve problems, think critically, innovate, communicate effectively. Yet schools often produce students who are great at taking tests but afraid to take risks. The world changed, the system didn't. We're preparing kids for a 1990 job market with a 1950 mindset using an 1850 structure. Tell me that's not broken. Leadership isn't about being loud or in charge. It's about vision, courage, independent thought, empathy. Where are these traits in the curriculum? We learn algebra before we learn how to resolve conflict. We memorize dates before we're taught to challenge injustice. We study Shakespeare before we study the power of purpose. Now don't get me wrong, those things matter. But shouldn't we also teach how to spot manipulation, how to build confidence, how to navigate disagreement, how to persuade ethically? That's leadership, and we're not teaching it. So what would a leadership-focused education look like? Imagine schools where discussion is valued over regurgitation, collaboration is prioritized over silent individual work. Students solve real-world problems, not just textbook ones. Emotional intelligence is as important as academic performance. Every student is taught to think for themselves, even when it's uncomfortable. Now that would create a generation of leaders, not just workers, not just followers, leaders. You might be thinking, okay, but not every student can be a leader. True, but leadership isn't a role, it's a mindset. A society of people who think critically and act with purpose, that's how we solve the big problems. Climate change, inequality, corruption. You don't fix those with followers, you fix them with people brave enough to ask, why are we doing it this way? Is there a better path? Can we change this? That's leadership. And that should be the goal of education. If the education system keeps producing rule followers, who's going to write the new rules? If we don't teach students to challenge authority, how will they ever stand up to injustice? And if all we teach is how to pass a test, what happens when life throws questions with no clear answers? We can't afford to keep creating passive minds in an active world. Do you think the education system is failing to create leaders, or is it doing the best it can within a complex society? Do we need a revolution, or just a reform? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's debate. This isn't about hating schools, it's about evolving them. Subscribe for more mind-bending debates every week, only here on Debatable Statements. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and never stop questioning.